We went from 1 truck to 12 trucks in 2.5 years, right as the freight market was flipping itself upside down. And looking back at it, there are 3 things that kind of completely changed how I run the company today. I'm Chris. This is my 7th year owning a trucking company and hosting the Haulin Assets podcast. When I first started, I thought I knew trucking. Turns out I had no idea how much I would learn. Welcome back to Haulin Assets 2.0, where I take you through the good and the bad, the ups and the downs of being an owner-operator.
So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast, episode number 189. We're going to be talking, basically about what Chris just mentioned in our slick new teaser version thing that we're doing these days. I'm Craig, your host. Over there, he's Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How you doing, Craig?
I'm all right. It's a beautiful, snowy, blustery day.
It's like the first time it snowed this year, and we're more than halfway through February.
Don't tell the East Coasters.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So, Chris, we're going to do kind of some of the normal housekeeping and all of that stuff at the end. So nobody panic. Don't worry. I will bug you about, supporting the show and all of that. But Chris, let's get right into it. Our topic for today, you mentioned the 3 things that you were, in the notes, you say dead wrong about, but let's be nice. Okay. Things that shifted in your thinking after you started the company.
You're a little too kind. Real life is a little more brutal than that.
That's why I just seal myself in this little studio and I don't drive truck, because I can't deal with the real world, right?
Thanks for softening the blow a little bit today. Today's going to be an episode of self-reflection and reminding myself sometimes how dumb I can be.
So where do you want to start? We've got 3 things that we're going to go over. Where do you want to dive into these topics?
Let's start with direct shippers. One of the first lessons that I kind of, I thought, I've got a good personality. I'm business savvy. I'm smart. Shippers are going to love me.
At no point did you ever ask me my opinion on your personality?
That might be for a reason.
Okay, so direct shippers, because I remember you talked about this a ton at the beginning. You were, when we were just talking through your first year out on the road, it was a lot of like, hey, I just need to get my feet under me, make sure that my motor carrier is running well and has a good record, clean record, all of that, so that then I can go, because this is going to be the big thing. I'm going to go get those direct shipper relationships, because that's how we're going to make our money, right? I'm oversimplifying, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it took us really, I would say 3 solid years in business before I felt like we were really solid with shippers leaving Utah. So Utah's our home base, and getting to that point where we were able to get, really all of our loads leaving Utah now are with direct shippers. They're, pretty decent paying freight. But we're, 7 years into this adventure at this point, and we're still struggling with finding, ways to get relationships directly with shippers for loads that come back to Utah. Yeah. We've got some, but, not nearly as much as we would like. And it's just getting relationships, especially with shippers that are not in your home state, is that much more harder for a lot of different reasons. One, you're not there with them physically. You can't go, it's not easy to go visit them and see them on a regular basis. But then 2, just logistically, it's a little bit harder. You take, for example, if we're based in Utah and our shipper, like say we've got a truck that, breaks down last minute, or a driver that has a family emergency last minute and can't go pick up a load that we had scheduled. Well, because we're based out of Utah, we typically have options to flex and adjust. But when, it's a truck that's outside of Utah, picking up in a location away from home, you typically don't have those same resources, and you don't have that same ability to adjust and shift. So it's a little harder to make shippers happy and to be as reliable as you'd want, because this is trucking and shit happens.
Okay, so this is, as I take it, something that you might have sung a different hymn about earlier on in the life of Motor Carrier HQ, right? You're talking to new truckers. You say, all right, here's your strategy. Here's what you're going to do. Is it easy? No, but it's simple. All right, here's your plan. And now what I hear you saying is, okay, it's not so simple as I once thought, right?
Yeah,
Fair?
absolutely. And just the volume of shippers you have to talk to before you kind of will get one to bite. I mean, you may have to talk to 20 different shippers before you get one or two that says, yeah, hey, I'll give you a try, or they'll throw you a load here or there. And then that takes time to develop that. And you may have to do that with 3 or 4 or 5 different shippers before you get one that will give you consistent, reliable freight, and you find that you work well together. It just, all of that takes time. It takes effort. It's more difficult than you would ever think.
And it's one of those things about being an owner operator. We talked about that last week, this idea of an owner operator. And one of the things that you can know it, how do I put it? There's book learning and then there's street learning. And the book learning, you can know going into it that's like, all right, I'm going to be running this whole business. And running a business has all of these different departments, right? You've got your HR, you've got your finance, you've got your operations. But then what's the biggest or one of the most important key aspects of any business? Sales. Congratulations, you're an owner operator. You're now a salesman.
Absolutely.
And that's which is basically what you're saying. It's a numbers game. Because I've worked in sales, if I had a nickel for every time I heard it's a numbers game, right? But some cliches are cliches for a reason, right? And yeah, you are going to have to pound that pavement and make those phone calls. Yep. And it's going to take time and effort. So.
And that's 100% reality. It is like everything. It is a numbers game. And owner operators don't think about that a lot of the times when they want to jump into the business. Is you become a salesperson for your company. And that's a critical, essential role in your business, and you've got to be able to fill that.
And to be clear, I don't say this to freak anybody out or scare anybody off. The thing about all of these different roles, these different hats that you're going to put on, is that they can be done by you. Whatever your personality is, whatever your background is, there is an effective way for you to do it. So, you hear me saying, oh, it's a numbers game. You got to make all the phone calls. Well, yeah, that's true. But you don't have to rewire your entire personality in order to be a good salesperson for yourself and your company.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, anything else on that topic you want to go over?
I think that
pretty much covers that. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I know you wanted to get into was financial conservatism. All right. No, we're not talking about politics, Chris. We're talking finances and not being an idiot. So I'm being flippant, but again, I go back to that first year on the road and kind of the lessons that you were teaching at that point. Many of them stuck in my head, and I bet for longtime listeners, it's stuck in their head too. And it's the pickup truck. Don't buy the pickup truck.
Yeah.
Right? Not yet. Wait until, whatever the markers are that you determine before you feel like, all right, I'm stable enough to go buy the pickup truck. But for that first while of your company, you were singing out of the Dave Ramsey hymn book about being conservative with your finances, being careful, and not going out and immediately buying the $80,000 pickup with your first paycheck. Right?
Yeah. And I thought, this is kind of where my mistake with that financial conservative is. Especially at the beginning, we were always very financially conservative. And I thought that, in and of itself would kind of get us through difficult times and whatnot. But it's an important aspect. And I thought just because I was probably more financially conservative than a lot of people that I saw who were owner operators, who had small fleets, that would kind of help us glide along smoothly. And, it's not. It's so much more than that. Good trucking companies, because the trucking industry runs on such thin margins, especially when you compare trucking to other industries, like you're also big into dentistry, which has much better margins.
The margins
like
are
crazy.
Insane.
So you've got to, everybody that is successful in trucking is running on small margins, which requires that they be financially conservative. So in reality, being financially conservative is a requirement just to make it. Like
So,
you can't,
yeah.
you have to be financially conservative to make it. So those guys that are out there buying the pickup truck or, doing things on the personal side of their life that then strap their business side, like that's just, it's going to kill you. Like it will kill you.
So if I'm hearing you right, then you're not you're not burning the hymnal, right? You're not saying, "Oh, I was wrong about being financially conservative." What you were wrong about was just how much of a difference it was going to make to survival versus success.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, if you're not careful with your money, your business will die. But if you are careful with your money, it could make the difference, say, in marginal ways.
Yeah, I kind of almost look at it like this. I thought initially, when I was first starting out, that being financially conservative would give me a competitive advantage. But it doesn't give you it just makes it so you can play in the game.
Gotcha.
Like, you have to be financially conservative to even play. If you're not, the trucking's gonna be brutal and you're gonna be gone.
Okay. All right. Well, it seems simple enough. Don't be an idiot and you get a seat at the table.
Yep.
Okay. What's the third thing you want to go over?
So the third thing I really wanted to talk about was, I thought that initially we could survive as a company. Like we wouldn't thrive, we wouldn't do super well, but we could get by just off of brokered freight. And that's just not true long term. I want to say a few caveats with this. If you are an owner operator, even if you're an independent owner operator, you don't have other drivers, you have one truck, you might be able to make it just on brokered freight if you've got some really good brokers. Not all brokers are created equal. You find good brokers that pay decent rates. You're not going to get shipper rates, but you get above average broker rates, and you're that financially conservative. You can do some of the work on your own truck. You can save some expenses that way, and doing other things. You've got all your other ducks in a row. You might be able to make it off of just brokered freight, but the chances are much smaller that you can do this successfully.
Yeah. And it's, if you're going just on brokered freight, you are 100% at the mercy of the market as well, right?
Yes.
Where, look, the market is going to affect you with your direct shipper relationships, of course, but those waves are going to be a little smaller. Fair? Very
fair. And so if you hit the freight market in one of its peaks, you may be able to make it just fine and do very, very well for a year. But that's because the freight market is in one of its peaks and valleys. And the freight market always goes up and down and up and down and up and down. We experienced the biggest up ever right after COVID. And then we're still kind of in the biggest downtrend ever. 3, 4, 5, 6 years after COVID. And so, if you time it just right, you may be able to do just fine with brokered freight for a little while, but brokered freight is not a long-term plan. You're not going to be able to survive off of it long-term. You've got to go out and get some direct shipper relationships.
I can't remember if I've used this object lesson, and I guarantee anybody who's been to any type of Sunday school has seen whatever your
now. Wow.
Whatever your religion is, I guarantee you've seen this object lesson. It's the rocks in the jar.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding right, so, okay, here's the object lesson. The Sunday school teacher's got a jar, and then they've got a bunch of sand, a bunch of pebbles, and a bunch of stones, like larger stones, right?
And even water.
And water, yeah, you can do water as well. And so it's like, how do you fit all this stuff in the jar? And if you start by putting in the sand, then there's not enough room to get the pebbles and so on, right? So the idea is you start with the large rocks, and then you put in the pebbles, and then you fill in the cracks with the sand, and then you can even fit the water in there, right? Okay. Yeah. What I hear you saying is the direct shipper relationships aren't the only thing that are going in the jar, but those are your stones. Those are the big rocks. And they've got to go in first. That has to be like your primary source. And then you're filling in the cracks with the broker relationships, and then the load boards when you need to get home or whatever, right? Is that?
It's a great way to
good?
put it. Absolutely.
Okay. Good. Whew. All right. I got a good analogy in there. Okay, good. Anything else on that one that you want to talk about?
I think that's good.
Okay. All right. So, Chris, it's been now 6, 7 years, whatever. Oh, God. I hope nobody had kids in the car when I said that. Because, hey, yeah, if you know, you know. Okay. Sorry, everybody. But you've been in the business for several years.
We'll just call it 7.
There you go. But tell me about what's changed and yeah, kind of how your mindset has changed vis-a-vis these 3 things or other things as well.
Well, growth is definitely one of the biggest ones. Like I would, if I could, wind back time and do things all over again.
Don't make me sing it.
I would completely temper down our growth. I would have slowed down and not grown as quickly as we did. I mean, we, like I said in the teaser, we went from 1 truck to 12 trucks in like 2.5 years. We started that growth period during that post-COVID boom when things were great. And if you remember at that time, you had to order trucks a year out in advance and all kinds of things. So by the time we were getting those last few trucks, the freight market had already turned and things were going down. So we didn't, with the size of fleet that we had, we did not get to experience enough of the good time to save away enough money because we were kind of instead of saving money, we were putting money into our growth. And so by the time that we had that 12th truck and the freight market had really taken a dive, it turned into 3-4 years of just super hard grind. And if we would have grown half the size that we did, it would have been much more manageable. It still would have been tough, but not as hard as it was for that period of time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes, right? But that wasn't the only change. You brought on a lot of trucks, but you also brought on more people. And it's something you talked about was there's a big change, a big shift that happens in a company when you get out of the cab, or even if you're still staying in the cab and you hire another driver, suddenly you go from owner operator to employer. That's a big shift. And then you start bringing on others as well. Like remind me his name, the partner that you brought on.
Nate. Yeah.
That's
so that first I drove for that whole first year. We hired a driver the second, essentially the second year. And then we started adding trucks the end of that year and then brought Nate on the beginning of the next year. And so that's a big shift. I didn't have the time to really focus 100% of my effort on Haulin Assets. Obviously I've got other things going on. And so we brought that partner on to really kind of help grow the business together, which obviously we did, but not without struggle.
Yeah. And then, I know we wanted to talk about the freight market with all this as well. I think we've kind of hit that a little bit. So good. Any other, general life lessons that you learned in the last 7 years?
So the freight market is one of the things that I want to talk about that has changed in the business, but we've talked about it enough. There's one kind of point that I want to make with it. And that is, it's not a surprise that the freight market goes up and down. It's been doing that since day one. You'll have these high peaks and you'll have these low valleys. So that's not a surprise. You've just got to be prepared and ready for the freight market as things change. They're going to change. And if you're in the middle of a really good time, you need to be preparing for a tough time because it's going to come along. You need to be ready for that.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been.
What is it? If wishes and hopes were, no, never mind. All right. We'll leave that there. Okay, good, Chris. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff. Anything else that people should note about future episodes coming up?
Obviously we've talked a lot about Haulin Assets 2.0. We're changing. We're trying to get more into just making life better on the road. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, very good. And I think we've got some fun, some marketing opportunities, I think you would call it. Since we're all putting on our different business hats, well, hey, if we want to market this podcast, you know what we're going to do? Giveaways. Let's have some fun. Okay. We're going to have a little listener interaction, right?
Yeah, we're going to do some giveaways. We're going to try to bring listeners more into the podcast, talk about not just Haulin Assets experiences, but also some of our listeners, some of those experiences they have on the road. So if you've got something that you want to share that you think would be fun to talk about on the episode, reach out to us either through our comments. You can DM us on Facebook. You can go shoot me an email, chris@haulinassetsllc.com. And, we'll hopefully have a good handful of stories here, not too far in the future.
Well, let's at the end of this episode, Chris, I'll hit you with a little teaser that people can listen to. I've got a YouTube comment for you to respond to. Should be pretty quick, but we'll save that for the very end. All right.
Sweet.
All right. Well, what do you want to leave people with at the end of this episode? What's our takeaway?
If there is one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's that growth without strategy is absolutely going to humble you. Relationships take time to build. Trying to get all of your freight just from a broker is not a long-term strategy that's going to make you successful in this industry. So you've got to plan ahead. I learned those lessons the hard way. You don't have to. And that's really what Haulin Assets 2.0 is all about. Honest conversations, really experiences, you learning from my bad experiences so you don't have to go through the same thing.
All right, perfect. Well, if this episode helped people out, and I hope it did, we want to educate and entertain, right? So hopefully there's a few nuggets in there. If so, we would appreciate the most effective thing that, I talk about marketing, right? The most effective marketing that we can have is people recommending the show. So when you're out on the road or you're kicking it with your buddies, let them know about the show. And more hands make for lighter work. If you want the show to be better, we'd love to get more people's input. So recommend the show to them. You can point them to us, of course, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those places. We're also on YouTube. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe. I'm a good YouTuber. Thank you. And then HaulinAssetsLLC.com is where you're going to go find back episodes, full show notes, the works. You can get all the info there. And then let's see, motorcarrierhq.com, our benefactor, our sponsor, the thing that makes this all possible. If you are thinking about making that jump to owner-operator, you want to talk to motorcarrierhq.com. Chris, did I miss anything?
No, but I think you said you had one more kind of a listener question that you wanted to ask, and that will actually tie really well into Motor Carrier HQ.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, so this came to us from YouTube, actually. So, yes, I do read these. Michael Smith, I'm just going to assume that's a real name. I don't think there are a lot of people that make up Michael Smith as their internet handle. Says, wants to do an episode on what it means to get started as an owner-operator that leases onto another company, which we have talked about, but we could do maybe a whole episode on that. But here specifically, Michael asks, would it still be necessary to form your own LLC? Or what other suggestions do you have if you're not actually going to go on your own authority, but drive under someone else's?
So, first and foremost, I would say absolutely. It's just as important to have an LLC if you're leased onto somebody as it is if you're an independent owner operator, for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to make kind of your taxes and your business expenses much simpler. And it's really the right way to do it. And two, it protects you from liability. I can't tell you how many times relationships go bad, things go bad between a leased on owner operator and the company they lease onto. That's one area where you need to be extra careful on how you go about doing it. In a lot of situations, it's the right way to get your foot into the owner operator world, but you've got to do your due diligence and you've got to be careful with who you lease onto. There is a wide chasm of good companies that you can lease onto and really, really, really bad companies that are just going to take advantage of you. So make sure you do that research. And if things do go bad and do go south, you're going to be in a much better position if you have an LLC that is leased on rather than you personally, because that's the other option. If you don't have an LLC or you don't form some kind of business, it is you personally, which exposes all your personal assets, you personally to litigation, to other issues, and you just don't want to be there.
Yeah. And if you want to form that LLC, you can go pay several grand to an attorney to get that set up for you, or there are other ways to do it, right?
Yeah. Motor Carrier HQ can help out with that.
What?
I would love to.
So go to motorcarrierhq.com. All right, Chris, thanks. And thanks everybody for listening. Much appreciated. And we will see you all next time.
See you then.